The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
That is the sound of President Joe Biden falling on stage, actually tripping over a sandbag that was in his way. Today is Friday, June 2nd, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. We have seen that video on replay. That is probably one of the most watched videos on the face of the planet right now because of all of the implications of Joe Biden being the age that he is and falling in that manner. And I really think it's all just schadenfreude, to be quite honest with you. The sandbag was there. He didn't see it. He tripped. He fell. He got right back up. And from all indications, he's just fine. But that doesn't stop the naysayers from attacking Joe Biden. And again, to be sure, I am not one to defend Joe Biden, but I am certainly one to call out the BS narratives that are being spun by people who are excited to see Joe Biden fall, because this is yet just another tool that can be used to weaken the chances of us stopping fascism in 2024. Don't get it twisted. Something this simple, something this small will be used as much as they possibly can to undermine the election for the Democrats in 2024. And as bad as the Democrats may be, they are nothing compared to the fascism that we're having to ward off in the form of the modern Republican Party. That said, Joe Biden said quite a few things of substance at the Air Force Academy graduation. Here are a couple of his comments on NATO and Russia.
Our world stands at an inflection point. Remember what I said? Putin was certain that NATO would crack, that they would not stand together. We put 40 nations together. The United States has rallied the world to stand strong with Ukraine and defend the values that the American people hold so dear: freedom, sovereignty, democracy, simple dignity.
I do agree that the world is at an inflection point, and I think that it goes far beyond just our global issues. Without a question, we have some major global issues that are happening right now in real time. This is perhaps one of the most significant time periods in world history, if we really consider the direction that we can go as a result of the conflicts that we have on the global stage, but also the conflicts that we have domestically. The last part is what made me think of all of this. The last thing that he said, just the pursuit of simple dignity. When you think about the cruelty of this moment domestically here in the United States, the cruelty of the agenda and the strategy and the operations of the conservative movement, the cruelty attacks simple dignity. And that is an existential threat from within the United States of America. A few more comments from President Joe Biden. This is him talking about climate change.
From growing instability to food insecurity to natural disasters, all of which are being made worse by the existential threat of climate change. I don't hear many of my friends anymore saying there's no climate change. We're finally figured it out.
Well, I'm not sure about that part, because I hear plenty of climate deniers. We are in fact living in a period of denialism, if that's a thing, particularly around climate change and around the big ticket categories, the response to COVID-19. There's such a level of denial that's going on, pretending as though it's completed and there's no more pandemic. So I really don't think that we are past the stage of the irrational thinking and behavior when it comes to some of these major issues. But I digress. Allow me to go back to the fall. The president fell, and that's all anyone is talking about from yesterday. because, well, that's the easiest headline. And of course, this is a useful tool. The former owner and founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, Jack tweeted yesterday that the primaries should be open because, basically paraphrasing him, this is embarrassing. Sharing the tweet from, or sharing the video from the president falling. I've been watching his particular decline into his own particular brand of soft fascism. It's been interesting watching Jack, who turned over Twitter to Elon Musk and now, living in the aftermath of that decision, has decided to double down on some of the same thinking and ideologies as Elon Musk, using this as an opportunity to undermine Joe Biden. And again, I am not one to defend Joe Biden as a person, because if you ask me about his person, if you ask me about his record in the past, if you ask me about his record now, I mean, it's quite abysmal in terms of some key category things that are important to me, right? They may not be important to anyone else, but there's some issues that are important to me that Joe Biden has not delivered on. That said, he is not a fascist. He is not in the order of Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. And so I do get a bit perturbed when I see voices try to amplify, even in an indirect fashion, by undermining, and the man fell. So it's funny, right? And ha kiki way, but to suggest that this is a reason why the Democrats should open the primaries, when traditionally, let's just be real about it, it's entirely disingenuous for anyone to suggest that an incumbent has the responsibility or even the precedent. Really, that's what I forget. Responsibility. That's up to you to decide whether or not you think the Democrats should have a primary. That's your prerogative. But to suggest that this is out of the norm for the sitting president to not engage in a primary and a debate process, that's wildly disingenuous. And so to see the president falling and that being used as a means of amplifying this disingenuous argument. If you don't want Joe Biden in 2024, just say that. I think that's more easily explained than to try to suggest that there's some precedent that the president, the sitting incumbent in the past, has ever engaged in a primary process willingly. But of course, that's besides the point for this conversation. The point for this conversation is this: they are going to use everything in their power to help get Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump elected, because the agenda goes far beyond just beating Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a placeholder. He's a placeholder. He's the sitting Democratic president who happens to be holding the line against the fascists who want to solidify the power that they're already getting, and they need the executive branch to finalize their plans. Joe Biden is not a hero. He just happens to be the president in that position at this point, that if he is able to get reelected, we will be able to stave off fascism for another couple of years. It's a little abysmal when you think about the whole reality of the times that we live in, and you realize the level of strategy that's being wielded against the people of good faith, the type of strategies that are being employed by the fascists, the theocratic fascists, and the Christian nationalists. It's a little abysmal, but we have to play the cards that we're dealt. We don't really get a choice in the times in which we live. We happen to live at this very peculiar period of time when the forces of fascism are knocking at the gate, and we do have quite the bit of a incompetent opposition party in so many regards. But again, that's another episode for another day. What we have to do now is hold the line against the fascists. Yep. Speaking of abysmal, it doesn't bode well for the future of humanity that the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, has turned out to be nothing more than a do-boy for theocratic fascists. And I mean that in the very strict and literal sense of the sentence. Yesterday, Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, who proudly promotes himself as a theocratic fascist. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, who has built his entire platform and his entire public persona around attacking, ostracizing, and vilifying the LGBTQIA community with a special emphasis on the transgender community. That Matt Walsh was scheduled to stream his so-called documentary, What is a Woman? And originally they had a special deal with Twitter, a contract with Twitter to stream it, I guess with either some financial consideration or some type of consideration from Twitter for them to have entered into a contract. That contract was later rescinded by Twitter because of two instances of misgendering in the so-called documentary, What is a Woman? Now, you have to understand, for Matt Walsh, misgendering a transgender person is, well, he gets off on it. Like that's his kink. That's his thing. And so for him to not be able to misgender transgender people, in other words, there's just no way in the world he would have gone through the contract if he had to remove those two instances of misgendering from his so-called documentary, because that's the most important thing to him. The cruelty, the insults, the bigotry, that is where he gets off. And that's who Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, capitulated to last night. I mean, literally, just in terms of social media, groveling in front of these people to make sure that they got exactly what they wanted, which was to be able to stream this hate-filled so-called documentary, What is a Woman, without any type of restrictions on the hatred and the bigotry inside of the documentary. Now, this caused an uproar on the inside of Twitter, and Twitter lost last night another lead of their safety head. This came as a result of Elon Musk undermining their decision internally to not stream that video or to not continue with the contract as it was. Internally, the team that Elon Musk left in place, those that didn't leave after Jack Dorsey sold the company, those people who were responsible for making sure that there's nothing hate-filled streamed or posted on this site, on Twitter, they decided to not go through with this deal, and Elon Musk subsequently came behind and gave Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, who proudly identifies as a theocratic fascist. It's in his Twitter bio. It's literally theocratic fascist is literally in his Twitter bio. That's who Elon Musk overturned the decision of his team internally for. And as a result, Twitter head of trust and safety, Ella Irwin, resigned last night, according to multiple sources reporting to Axios. This came as a result of Elon Musk publicly rebuking his own staff over a content moderation decision, according to Axios. So there you go, folks. The richest man in the world has purchased one of the most important platforms in the history of the world and has now turned not only the platform, but his servitude, his entire public reputation. He has put it into the hands of these literal theocratic fascists. And in fact, he wasn't even done. Like, he allowed the video to be streamed. It did have a flag on it. The system, I guess it's either algorithm based or maybe somebody internally finally got a hold of Elon and said, no, we're at a minimum, they can stream it, but they put a flag on the content saying that it had some hate-filled or violated hate speech policies. That didn't stop some 1 million people from watching it last night. I mean, I think it's at 2-3 million this morning, but last night alone, they got 1 million views from the live stream. So they permitted him, Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, who proudly identifies as a theocratic fascist, they allowed him to stream his hate-filled so-called documentary, What is a Woman?, inclusive of the misgendering sections, which are nothing more than just the schadenfreude. This is the kink of Matt Walsh, to be able to harm someone who has not only transitioned their name, but also their gender. And for people like Matt Walsh, the entire point is not to protect the children. For me to even have to say that in the context of the sentence, really, of this conversation, really should show you how ridiculous of the times in which we live, because these are the same people who literally do nothing in the face of all of the pedophilia that goes on inside of their churches, inside of their synagogues, inside of these Catholic organizations, these priests. So it's never been about protecting the children, but they have cast the entire conversation around the LGBTQIA community as being one of protecting the children, when at the core of what they are doing is simply exercising cruelty. And that cruelty is being aided and abetted now by the boy of fascism, Elon Musk, who, again, he wasn't done last night. Earlier today, he tweeted out the so-called documentary, What is a Woman?, and said all parents should watch this. Well, folks, these are interesting times. And as President Biden said in his commencement speech,
our world stands at an inflection point.
Indeed, this is an inflection point.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Oh. So, the podcast is a little bit late today, and that's because I began my birthday weekend festivities a little early with a special breakfast that was provided for me by my family. And I will be celebrating all weekend long with friends and et cetera, et cetera. Monday is my official birthday. I will still be broadcasting because, hey, that's just what I do. But this is the complete episode. Today is only going to be 30 minutes. There's no bonus episode because, well, there's more birthday festivities for me to get to. Now, if you want to celebrate with me, go to patreon.com/The BPD Show and become a patron. That's a good way to celebrate with me. Or you can send a little, what do we say in the church? Love offering. Cash App BPD 2018. And that's this weekend. It's your boy's birthday. No patron party as I know it, but DJ exclusive. He's his own man. He might pop up and want to do something. So if that happens, we will drop the link for you patrons, patreon.com/The BPD Show. I need to talk about one other story that's extremely frustrating for me because I think it represents one of the categories that demonstrates the complete and total irrationality of our age. When we talk about COVID-19, that really does something to me because that's perhaps the most real and tangible thing that we all are sharing in common. You know, the politics affects us all at different levels, in different ways and different levels of intensity. But the pandemic really did impact us all with the same level of trauma. And the fact that the pandemic is not actually over, but we are all having to move forward in our own way and accept a certain level of risk. Depending on how much you go out and just live a normal life, you just have to accept the fact that, well, we're living in an era where COVID never went anywhere. COVID never went anywhere because of how completely and totally ridiculous our system was and is as it pertains to dealing with the pandemic. Now, all of that prelude, I got to talk about Jamie Foxx because this has been one of the most insidious residuals of the period of COVID-19. And it is the level of, one, COVID denialism, right? Vaccine conspiracy theories coming from anti-vaxxers, But then now, anytime a celebrity gets sick, or God forbid, a celebrity dies, there are so many maggots, Make America Great Again, and the anti vaxxers who pounce on those stories and create a narrative that's not rooted in any fact and assume and assert that every single celebrity that has gotten sick, or like Damar Hamlin, who had a cardiac arrest on the field and collapsed, Jamie Foxx in the hospital. As much as we know he's still in the hospital, though some reports indicated that he was actually home. We don't know. But that did not stop all of these maggots and these anti-vaxxers from turning the entire narrative into being that Jamie Foxx, here's a conspiracy theory now. Here is what has been spread, and I'll play the clip of where it originally came from. But the word on the street now is that Jamie Foxx has been in the hospital dealing with blood clots because he got the vaccine despite not wanting to get the vaccine because his family forced him to get the vaccine, and he's near death now because of the COVID-19 vaccine. That's the word that is being spread through all of the conservative echo chamber, right? Everyone from Matt Walsh to Tim Pool to mainstream media outlets picking it up. And this is right here, what I just said right there, mainstream media outlets. Here's the outlet that picked it up, MSN. Not MSNBC, but MSN picked up the following clip that came from the show, Dr. Drew, who himself is in the order of all of these quack doctors who don't hesitate to do whatever they have to, ethical or not, in order to make a dime. That's who Dr. Drew is, and that's the world that he exists in. He brought on a guest who said that he personally had contacts. This is where it came from. I'm going to play the clip so that you can hear it for yourself. This is a random doctor, I'll get his name, who said that he knows people inside where Jamie Foxx is hospitalized, and we found out that he's hospitalized because of the vaccine. Listen in.
I had somebody in the room who let me know that Jamie had a blood clot in his brain after he got the shot. He did not want the shot, but the movie he was on, he was pressured to get it. This movie he's doing with Cameron Diaz. And I'm thinking, is that why he blew up on the set a week before this medical emergency happened? Is that why he fired 3 or 4 people because he just had it with these mandates? I don't know. But what I found out from the man in the room was that the blood clot in the brain caused him at that point to be partially paralyzed and blind. Because if you read into what they were saying early on, he's communicating with us. That doesn't mean talking. That could be anything. It could be, writing, sign.
Okay, that was the voice of AJ Benza, who is a gossip columnist for the New York Daily News. And he was being interviewed by the reality TV host, Dr. Drew. And because of that exchange right there, MSN picked it up and broadcasted. I want to give you the headline that they use because it is as ridiculous. And it is the clickbait. It is the necessity of the clickbait for them to get the points that they need, the clicks that they need. Here's the headline. Jamie Foxx left paralyzed and blind as an effect of the COVID-19 vaccine, reports. That hyphen reports is doing a whole hell of a lot. Shame on Microsoft, MSN, not MSNBC, but MSN. Jamie Foxx, this is the headline. Jamie Foxx left paralyzed and blind as an effect of the COVID-19 vaccine, hyphen reports. And who are they reporting? They are reporting from, quote unquote, now he's a journalist, AP Benza. They promoted him because they couldn't say the New York Daily News gossip columnist, AP Benza. They promoted him to a journalist because they needed this headline to go out so that they can get the clicks and to forward the narrative that there's something wrong with the vaccine. And if I could just before I go, I know I'm getting ready to go and enjoy the rest of my birthday weekend. $ BPD 2018. Buy your boy a birthday coffee cup. Before I go, I have to sadly report that one of the worst people in the world has made a good point. Donald Trump, who is possibly the second worst person in the world, second only to Ron DeSantis. And in an exchange with voters in, I believe, Iowa, he was, and I'll play the clip for you. He discussed the success of Operation Warp Speed, which was the program that he oversaw to get the vaccine done quickly. Someone from the audience yelled at the former president saying that because of what he did with Operation Warp Speed, people died because they took the shot. Now, when people say that, you have to understand they are speaking based on the VAERS system. And that is the system where you can voluntarily report adverse effects to the vaccine or to any type of vaccine. It's a voluntarily reported, unverified source of information that these people like to cite as though they are verified instances of people having adverse reactions to the vaccine. But that doesn't stop these people from spreading their misinformation. That does not stop people like Ron DeSantis from pushing this ridiculous anti-vax message that he's pushing all the way to the White House, and as a result, actually outpositioning Donald Trump as the worst person in the world. I mean, how despicable do you have to be to move Donald Trump to the second place position for the worst person in the world? Take a listen in to Trump as he discusses his operation. The one thing that he did good was Operation Warp Speed. Listen closely. The question is hard to hear from the audience, but you'll hear them say, "We lost people because you supported the jab."
What will you do different as RNC members around this country?
Yeah.
And we have lost people because you supported the jab.
Yeah.
What do you think you would do different?
Yeah, well, everybody wanted a vaccine at that time. And I was able to do something that nobody else could have done, getting it done very, very rapidly. But I never was for mandates. I thought the mandates were terrible. And there's a big portion of the country that thinks that was a great thing. You understand that. Not a lot of the people in this room, but there is a big portion.
Well, I mean, the bad news for Trump is that the portion of people who think that it was a good thing for us to get the vaccine as quickly as we got it, well, they're people like me who would never vote for Donald Trump to save my life, but I might vote in the primary to undermine Ron DeSantis. But I digress. I mean, how despicable do you have to be in order to make Donald Trump right on something? Because as soon as Trump said that yesterday, the DeSantis War Room on Twitter tweeted out the following just now. Iowa voter tells Trump, "We lost people because you supported the jab." Trump responds by praising the COVID mRNA shots. Doesn't acknowledge any of the adverse effects. I can't with these people. I can't. I mean, from the fact that we have one of the very likely potential nominees for president actually campaigning on an anti-vax message. And he's competing with a guy, Donald Trump, who is, the only reason he's going to stand by the COVID-19 vaccine is because, well, it came out underneath his watch. But other than that, he's going to do everything else that Ron DeSantis is going to do. And then you look at the giddiness with which conservative maggots and anti-vaxxers are spreading misinformation every single time a celebrity gets sick. They spread these lies and conspiracy theories so that they can further undermine the vaccine, the ability for people to confidently get the vaccine. Like and we're past that because now we're at the stage where it's becoming baked in. They're trying to change the position of reality and to suggest that, one, COVID was never really real. Two, the vaccines hurt people and didn't really stop anything. And three, anyone who's still wearing a mask is ridiculous and living in fear, and they are brainwashed. That's the momentum. That's where the weight of this moment in our country, in our world's history. That's where it is. That's where the discourse is now. We're well past reasonable and rational conversations. We're well past taking reasonable and responsible measures to protect one another. We're in this very icky, insidious place where every man and woman and non-gender conforming individual for themselves, while the people with power, half the power of this country, are adamant about rewriting history and undermining the science as it pertains to COVID-19. Well, I guess that's a pretty horrible place to end the episode before I go to my birthday weekend. I'm not going to do a whole lot because, well, we're still in a pandemic. I'm going to do something. I'll figure out something, and definitely going to probably catch a couple of these movies my kids wanted to see. I'm spending my birthday with my kids. Where else would you expect me to be? Folks, thanks so much for all you do. Patrons, no bonus episode today because I'm about to get the shenanigans started. And by shenanigans, I mean like cake and kids. Patreon.com/the BPD show. $BPD 2018. Love you all. Mean it. See you Monday on my birthday.